So today I thought I would swatch and review for you guys all of the Lisa Eldridge lipsticks that I own. Currently, I'm not wearing anything on my lips. I've also put on the most neutral, chill possible makeup I could. So no bright, crazy blush or eyeshadow colors, no crazy textures even. Just trying to make my face like a blank neutral canvas so that the thing that pops is the lip color. I do, by the way, have both the foundation and the Seamless Skin Elevated Glow, but I'm not going to be reviewing those in this particular video because I haven't had the opportunity to fully test them yet. I am wearing both the foundation and the highlighter today though, although I went very chill on the highlighter because, like I said, didn't want to be distracting for the lips. If you're curious, the shade that I've picked for myself is 18. I will be listing all of my foundation matches down in the description box below, along with little notes if I think they're a little bit too dark or too peach or whatever, so that you can take a look at them and see for close in skin color. I will also add that I don't think any camera has ever been able to fully capture just how olive my skin is in person. I feel like I look a little bronzier on the screen than I look in real life. Like when I look at my hands in real life, there's a very strong green undercurrent that's like visible to the naked eye. So without any further ado, let's get into these swatches. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with sort of the lightest, sheerest formulas and colors and then work my way up to the deepest and richest formulas and colors because I don't want the swatches to be impacted by any potential staining. So let's start off by swatching and reviewing the gloss embraces. So I just want to add a comment about this particular color, Go Lightly, which is suggested to be a replica of like Audrey Hepburn's favorite lip color. I think this color looks fine on me. Like it's still very much so a wearable color. However, I do want to point out, and I'm not sure how accurately this is being reflected on camera, I already have pigmented lips and my natural lip color is sort of a very like grayed out purpley mauve. And so Go Lightly ends up on my skin tone, on my lips, looking a lot more cooler toned than it does in the bottle and than it would on somebody who doesn't already have very strongly pigmented lips. So if you are a person who has sort of like gray purpley mauve lip pigments, I do just want to flag that for you, that it's gonna look a lot cooler and a little even like grayer and mauvier than it does in this bottle. Now let's remove that and try the next gloss embrace, my absolute favorite, and it's the color Affair. I do believe that the like eye and cheek makeup that I'm wearing today is a little bit too light to make Affair really, really shine, because on me this is definitely like a neutral nudie lipstick. Where the Affair gloss embrace like really shines, in my personal opinion, is when I wear what I consider to be the daily Prachi makeup. The daily Prachi makeup is like a shimmery bronze color like this, like definitely deeper than my actual skin tone, and slightly thicker eyeliner than what I'm currently wearing. And when I have that on, when I have this sort of like bronzed out eye, slightly thicker eyeliner, a little more intense on the blush, when there's a bit more color on the rest of my face, I find that this looks so effortlessly good. Like I really don't know how Lisa Eldridge did it. I don't know how her sense of color is so spot on, because I feel like this is just the right amount of brown and peach and pink to be so thoroughly flattering on my skin tone. Of the 4 gloss embraces that I have purchased, I can say that this is the one that I would without question like repurchase when it runs out. If Lisa Eldridge ever discontinues this color, absolute devastation, I will riot. Let's move on to the very first gloss embrace I actually acquired. This was the one that I bought earlier this year as a treat for myself because I graduated, and it is Velvet Blush. I think after Affair, this is my second favorite gloss embrace. I find that it gives just the perfect amount of pigmentation to my lips to turn a look decidedly more berry or pink toned without being overwhelming and potentially like messy. But anyway, let's move on to the final gloss embrace, the one that I acquired most recently, and that is Dragon. So of the 4 gloss embraces that I own, I think this is definitely the most pigmented. It packs a punch. It's very much so like a statement color. I don't know if I want to describe this as an orange that leans red or a red that leans orange. And I think The gloss embrace in particular on me, it looks like a very sort of like nice, warm, fiery red color. Whereas with Velvet Affair, you might even like be tricked into thinking that that's just my actual lip color and I'm wearing a clear gloss. Like, Dragon is a presence. She has arrived. I think on my skin tone in particular, I would wear this color a lot more in the summer. I don't think I would wear it right now as like autumn is transitioning into winter, but it is really pretty and I do like the effect that it has on me. I will say, any and all orange tone lipsticks, you do have to keep an eye out for your teeth because the yellow in orange tone lip products often sort of emphasizes the yellowness of your teeth. That is something you have to be like kind of a little bit aware of. Like, if you are maybe self-conscious about yellowness in your teeth or something like that, like that would be the only instance in which I'd be like, hey, maybe be careful with the gloss like Dragon. If you're still looking for like a lot of color but in a gloss form, I would suggest maybe going for Velvet Ribbon, or actually especially Velvet Myth, because Myth is distinctly blue base and that kind of brightens your teeth. So I do want to flag that. A note on the formulas of these: excellent. To me, this has kind of like the nourishment of a lip balm or a lip oil, but the color of like a genuine gloss. There's none of that like super sticky, tacky feeling that you get with, for example, the Glossier lip gloss or the MAC lip gloss. So I've wiped off the gloss embrace, and like, here's what I mean about how nourishing the formula is. Even though I've wiped it off, and I've wiped it off completely, my lips still feel really like moisturized and hydrated. It's like whatever nourishment or oils were in those products have genuinely like sunken into my lips and left like a really good nourished feeling. Like, they don't feel tight or dry or inflamed in any sort of a way, and I've been rubbing at them pretty aggressively to get all of these colors off. But anyway, let's now move on to the two luxuriously lucent lip colors that I own. The first one is the color Spirited Away, which I'm gonna be the first person to admit I only bought because I really, really love that Miyazaki movie. I did not think for even like 1 second about whether it would be a particularly flattering color on me or not. I just, I read the word Spirited Away and it's like my brain blacked out and went to the fantasy land of that movie while my body just like added it to the cart and checked out, because next thing I knew I had bought it. It was over. It is honestly sheer dumb luck that Spirited Away ended up being a color that I personally think looks very flattering on my skin tone. I wore this a lot when I initially bought it in spring because it seemed like the perfect season for that lipstick given my skin tone. It adds just the right amount of pinkness to my lips. For me, this actually functions very similarly to Velvet Blush in that I find that it just gives the perfect sort of flushed, pretty pink look to my lips. I think the sheerness of the lip product also really helps out in terms of it being really flattering because it kind of allows my natural lip pigment and color and undertone to also shine through and adjust the color. So yeah, even though this was like a very stupid impulse purchase, I lucked out. It worked out super in my favor, and I think it's a very, very pretty color for spring and fall. However, I do understand that a lot of people who are around my skin tone don't enjoy wearing particularly pink looking lipsticks, especially sort of light pinks. And so for those folks, as well as folks who I think are like a little bit darker than me, I think the next color, Painterly, would be the one to get if you're interested in trying out this luxuriously lucent formula. I know that right now, Clinique's Black Honey is like experiencing some sort of like resurgence or revival, which honestly, I just think is so funny. Clinique Black Honey was also like one of the first lipsticks I ever bought and tried. And to see it having this sort of like intense viral resurgence now, I just think it's like, it's such a beautiful testament to how everything old is new again. Like, I'm glad Clinique Black Honey is getting its moment, but I will say, like, as a person who has owned multiple tubes of Clinique Black Honey and actually like decluttered them to various friends, I personally don't think Black Honey is as flattering on medium to dark skin tones as people like to think that it is, because it is genuinely just so sheerly pigmented. It's like, what are we doing here? I feel like I have to run it over my lips like 5, 6, 7 times in order to get it to show up. When I'm just sort of swiping it on casually like a lip balm, the way I would going over my lips maybe like twice, I feel like I might as well just be wearing a clear lip balm, And so for me, Painterly is actually what I had always hoped and wished Clinique's Black Honey to be, right? Because in about like 2 swipes across my lips, Painterly gives me a very distinct sort of like just bitten, flushed, beautiful color. The point I'm trying to make is I think if you have Painterly by Lisa Eldridge and you're like very caught up in the hype around Black Honey, like don't be. Like you already have what in my opinion is the superior product. Now if you're a person who just doesn't vibe with like sheer lip colors, like you want pigment, like I think you should just skip over the luxuriously lucent lip color entirely, right? I think this is a line more for people who enjoy, like I know Chanel and YSL both have those sort of like sheer, slippy, shiny, balmy lipsticks. I think if you enjoy those, you might enjoy the luxuriously lucent lip colors. I think if you enjoy Black Honey and the fact that it's almost a lipstick, you will enjoy this. And I think if you like the Glossier Generation G situation, you might also have a good time with these guys. But if you are like I want pigment out of my lipstick, I want color to show up, I don't think this is for you. I think at that point, then you should stick with Lisa Eldridge's Velvet formula, which is the formula that I personally love the most out of all of her lines. I think it's one of my favorite lipstick formulas, period. And I own 8 of those lipsticks, all of which I have here. So let's transition over into that. So those of you who've been following my channel for a while, you know that last year I was on a project where I was allowed to buy just 20 beauty items during the entire year. So makeup, skincare, hair care, perfume, nail polish, whatever. Across all those categories, I could buy only 20 things. 3 of those 20 spots last year were taken up by Lisa Eldridge's Velvet lipsticks, which I bought and which came inside this beautiful plush maroony velvet bag. Since then, I have bought 5 more of her Velvet lip color lipsticks, and I haven't even tried those on yet. This is it. Like when you see me swatch those colors here in this video, I will be reacting to the way that they look on my skin for the very first time. I did also buy 5 of her lip liners. So I bought Affair, Cinnabar, Decade, Midnight, and Myth. And I bought these 4 with the exception of Affair, because Affair is like a nudie brown color. I do have nudie brown lip liners, but Decade, Cinnabar, Myth, and Midnight, I don't have any lip liners even vaguely corresponding to these color families in my lip collection, right? So I felt like these would be an excellent addition to my arsenal because I could use them not only with the Lisa Eldridge lip colors, but like Cinnabar, for example, I do own and wear a lot of different orangey red lipsticks, and I think this would be an excellent lip liner to help tone some of the more intimidating oranges down for me. So I'm not gonna like review these super in depth right now because I haven't really had a lot of experience using them. Like in fact, I will be using them for the first time during this video if I feel like Velvet Midnight, for example, merits me kind of working on the shape of my lips a bit. But just a heads up, that is what's going on. But yeah, so a little note, I guess, on the formula. And then I think I'm just gonna like swatch all of the colors in very quick succession because honestly, like you're just seeing me react. But in terms of formula, so the 3 lipsticks that I bought last year, they are like ultra pigmented, very, very intense, one swipe of color lipsticks. They are matte lipsticks, which means they are not going to be like nourishing or hydrating. Like you can't expect that out of a matte lipstick. However, in my personal experience, compared to a lot of other matte lipsticks that I've used, these are probably among the most comfortable matte lipsticks. Now granted, I have never used a Pat McGrath matte lipstick, so I don't have a frame of reference for whether that is more or less comfortable than these ones, but I've never had like my lips feel really dry or achy or not great. The way that they have sometimes when I've worn, say, like a retro matte lipstick from MAC or any of the Anastasia liquid lipsticks or any of the like KVD Beauty matte lipsticks. Hi, hello, Editing Prachi here. I just wanted to point out something that I forgot to mention in the video. So the tube of Velvet Muse that I had, I initially like rolled it up a little too much the very first time I used it. And because I rolled it up too much and then I applied some pressure, the tube snapped. Oh, let me be really careful because I don't want it to fall all the way out of the tube. Woo! And it did. It did. So I basically just put it back into the tube and I don't push the tube all the way up when I use it. And I've been very careful with every single lipstick I've ever opened and used after Velvet Muse to make sure I don't like push them all the way up and apply a lot of pressure because they will just break off. And I know I'm not the only person who's had that issue. I know a bunch of other people have also done the same thing that I've done and accidentally broken it off. Like I gave one of my friends Mira Velvet Myth and she went to go use it and it just like broke off and she was like, oh my God. So I do want to flag that you have to be really careful with these. They are kind of fragile. They will break. Ignore my unmade bed, y'all. But yeah, so just wanted to flag that. So I'm definitely going to swatch all of the colors now. In terms of the colors that I've experienced before, Velvet Decade sits right at the top, then Velvet Blush, and Velvet Muse is actually a lip color I kind of almost regret buying. I feel like on me personally, it's a little too like rosy pink because it's so strongly pigmented and it's also a rosy pink color. I kind of almost like don't know what to do with that. I feel like I always have to wear a lip liner with Velvet Muse to make it acceptable. And so Velvet Muse is one of the ones where I'm just like, I kind of like, I wish I hadn't bought that, you know, like I wish instead of buying Velvet Muse, I had instead bought Velvet Jazz, which seems beautiful and is like a color that would be right up my alley, or even Velvet Ribbon, because I love like a classic iconic red. And so I think Velvet Muse is my only real sort of like regret of a purchase. Although, you know, like I said, I haven't tried 5 of the lip colors yet, so maybe I'll try something right now and be like, oh no, that was a mistake. You really should have bought like Velvet Jazz instead or Velvet Ribbon. But yeah, let's get into it. I'm gonna be quiet now. We're gonna let some music play and I'm gonna swatch all of the Velvet lip colors from Lisa Eldridge from lightest to darkest. And there we have it. Those are all of my Lisa Eldridge Velvet lip swatches. We ended on the darkest and most dramatic one, Velvet Midnight. I don't know if you guys can see, but I did have a little bit of difficulty applying Velvet Midnight. I don't know if it has to do with the formulation of the lipstick, if it's the fact that it's just, you know, it's a very dark color and dark colors are often a little bit more finicky, or I do know as a person who has done lip swatch videos before that wiping off lipsticks with micellar water and then reapplying sometimes means that the things that you swatch later in the video don't swatch quite as smoothly. Hi, hello, it's Editing Prachi the next day, and I just threw like Velvet Midnight onto my lips to check, and as I suspected, I think the patchiness was from the fact that I had applied and removed so many lip products using micellar water. And I think what happens is that sometimes like a little bit of micellar water just like remains on your lips and it makes it really hard for the lipstick to properly adhere. And now on like clean, dry, normal lips, like this is applying perfectly well. I'm seeing none of the issues that I had yesterday where it felt like it was skipping over entire sections of my lip and making them much, much lighter than they should be. So for the rest of this video, anytime I mention anything about Velvet Midnight's formula, you can just ignore it because it's fine. It's fine. That was a me problem, not a formulation problem. One way of potentially mitigating it, actually let me try that right now, is to maybe just like go over my entire lip with like my finger or like a lip brush, or in this case a flat eyeshadow brush, because I think sort of like pressing the color in more and layering it might be more effective than just applying it from a bullet. And I think I might like this slightly softer, more diffuse version of it a bit more. I definitely think it's more wearable. Like, I think it looks fine now. I don't think it's as crazy dark as it was before, but I still think I'm getting like that vampy vibe without like egregious patchiness. I think the biggest surprises for me were Velvet Dragon and Velvet Cinnabar. Cinnabar especially because she's coming for Miss Decade's throne. I think if you were to ask me to personally rank the 8 Velvet lipsticks that I have, I think Decade is still at the top. Cinnabar is right below her, like truly coming for her neck. And then just a little bit below her would be Velvet Myth and Affair, just kind of like neck and neck. Because I do love a really good berry color, and that's what Myth is. I think it's just this like perfectly balanced, beautiful berry that like brightens my face, brightens my teeth. It's such a beautiful statement color. But at the same time, I know for a fact that I'm probably gonna use Velvet Affair up first of all of these lipsticks, right? It is a perfect everyday lipstick for me. I know I'm gonna use the hell out of it. The color tone is just right. Surprisingly, I don't even need a lip liner for it. Like, it works perfectly just right outside the tube, but I have the lip liner just in case. Then below that, I would put, this is a major shocker, Velvet Dragon. Although in terms of the gloss embraces, I much prefer blush to Dragon. In terms of actual lipsticks, Dragon is beautiful. I think it was probably the most surprising to me. It was the one I was absolutely the most apprehensive about, and it ended up looking stunning against my skin tone. And I think I would want to wear it by itself. That sort of like matte muted orange instead of layering this lip product on top. But yeah, I think Dragon might be one of my favorite orange lipsticks of all time now. And then we have close behind her Velvet Blush, and then Velvet Midnight, the one that I'm currently wearing. Just because I think it's a slightly like more difficult, tricky color to wear, I'm suddenly like very, very glad that I actually bought the lip liner for this so I can get it really, really dark or wear it soft and diffuse like this. And right at the bottom, sorry ma'am, is Velvet Muse. Here's the thing, like when I wore it with the Affair lip liner, it was fine. It's just like, I don't know that I would necessarily ever feel a pull towards wearing this color. Whereas with Velvet Midnight, I create entire makeup looks and outfits and everything in order to wear a vampy lip. And so even though it's kind of like finicky to work with a little bit because it's such a dark color, I would be more likely to repurchase Velvet Midnight than I would be to repurchase Velvet Muse. I don't often put this color on my lips. I just realized that I do put this color very frequently on my cheeks. So now I'm wondering if perhaps I'll get much better use out of Velvet Muse as an actual blush. And oh, I think we might have a winner. I think that might be how I actually start using Velvet Muse from now on, because I did pay like nearly $40 for it, and now I don't want it to just sort of like languish in my lipstick collection given how much money I spent on it. And oh, oh, she's okay. Ignore the lips, but like she's pretty as a blush. So I think, okay, I think I have found a new purpose for Velvet Muse. We shall see. Hi, hello, editing Prachi again. Ignore the sun shining like right in my face. So I spent like 2 hours yesterday going through and like personally finding and swatching a whole bunch of different dupes. And 2 hours of footage is obscene to try and edit. So what I've done is in my like hoodied form, I have re-swatched all of the dupes again. So if you're like, oh, why is Prachi's like nail color different or blah, blah, whatever, just know that it's a different day. I'm wearing this. And I've re-swatched all of the potential dupes so that it's a bit more of a concise editing experience for me. So in terms of dupes, this is everything that I pulled out of my collection that was even vaguely similar to Velvet Affair, which is right here. And when you swatch these out on my arm, you'll see that some of them, which look quite similar in the tube, actually differ a lot on the arm. All the way on the right, we have Velvet Affair. Next to it is the original Fenty Gloss Bomb. Then next to that is the Maybelline Lifter Gloss in Topaz, which is basically a functional dupe of the Gloss Bomb. Then right in the middle, we have Fenty Hot Chocolate. And then next to that, and surprisingly close in color to the Gloss Embrace in Affair, is an Urban Decay lip gloss in Dirty Talk. However, you'll notice that the Urban Decay one is quite shimmery and metallic, whereas the Affair gloss is a straight up cream. In fact, all of the glosses I've named so far do have shimmer particles in them, while Affair is a straight up cream. And these two cream glosses down here, I just realized actually serve as pretty good dupes for each other. So up top we have the Revlon gloss in Indulge in It, and on the bottom we have Pat McGrath's Flesh 6. So as you can see, nothing is quite exactly the same as the Gloss Affair. So here we have everything in my lip gloss collection that's even vaguely close to Go Lightly. So Go Lightly is all the way on the very right. You can see that the Lancome Juicy Tube in Raspberry Ice, which in the tube looked like it might be vaguely close to Go Lightly, actually swatches like completely clearly on my arm. The Etude House Cherry Moisture Lip Glow in OR201 is surprisingly close to Go Lightly, despite looking quite different from it in the tube. It's just a little warmer and a little orangier. I think on my lips, which are quite mauvey purple, the Etude House lip gloss actually I think gives me more of the effect that I wanted Go Lightly to have. And then all the way on the left is a Lancome Juicy Shaker in Piece of Cake, which is much more muted and warm than Go Lightly. Here's everything I have that's even vaguely similar to Velvet Blush, and I think this is one of the ones where a lot of things look vaguely similar to it in the tube, but then when I swatch them out on my arm, the stronger pigmentation of this shows how different they really are. So all the way on the very right, we have the Gloss Embrace in Blush. Right next to it, we have the Lancome Juicy Shaker in Piece of Cake. Next to that, we have the Dior Lip Maximizer in Rosewood. Next to that, we have the Fenty Gloss in Fussy. And then finally, all the way on the very left, we have a Maybelline Lifter Gloss in the color Sand. And you can see, like, none of them have the richness or pigmentation or true depth of color that Velvet Blush does. Here's everything that's similar to Dragon in my lip gloss collection. Dragon is the one on the very right. Then right next to it is the Fenty Gloss Bomb in Cheeky, which while it looked very similar in the tube, is much sheerer and doesn't have any of the same sort of depth and richness that Dragon does. I think the closest thing in my collection, and even then it's not exact, would be the Item Beauty lip gloss in Heart Popping. That's the one in the middle. And then you can see that the two on the left-hand side, so the one on the very left is the Glossier Red Lip Gloss, and then the second one on the left is the Fenty Beauty Gloss Bomb Heat in Hot Cherry. Those two red glosses have a much cooler, pinker undertone. So here's everything I own that's even vaguely similar to the Luxuriously Lucent lip colors. I'm going to swatch both the Luxuriously Lucent lip colors next to each other as well as next to all of these. Because honestly, they're
not that different from each other. On the very right, we have Lisa Eldridge's Spirited Away. Then we have the MAC Satin Lipstick in Retro. Then we have Lisa Eldridge's Painterly. Then we have Clinique's Black Honey. And here I want to note that both Spirited Away and Painterly were built up with about 3 swipes. Black Honey, it took me 8 swipes to get that level of pigmentation, and you can see it's still much fainter than both Painterly and Spirited Away. And then next to that, we have the Bobbi Brown Crushed Lip Color in Telluride, which is pretty close to Painterly, but it is more matte in its texture, whereas Painterly is a bit glossier and shinier. Next to that, we have the Kiehl's Tinted Lip Balm in Touch of Berry. And then lastly, all the way on the very left, this is actually a lip gloss. It's the Clarins Instant Lip Perfector in 08. And that also has a very similar undertone to Painterly, with the caveat that it is a straight up gloss. Moving on to the Velvet lipsticks, I've decided to swatch Velvet Decade and Midnight together because I know for a fact I don't have anything similar to Velvet Midnight. So all the way on the very right, we have Velvet Midnight, and as you can see, nothing quite approaches the deep, rich, plummy purple quality that Velvet Midnight has. Next to it, we have Velvet Decade, which you can see is a lot sort of browner, more muted, more chill compared to Velvet Midnight. Then the closest thing I found in my collection to Velvet Decade is actually MAC's lip liner in Plum. So you can see it has that same sort of mix of brown and plum and gray. I would argue that I think Decade is probably slightly more grayed out than Plum, but if you don't want to buy Decade, or if you want to check to see if Decade would be flattering on your skin tone and you have access to MAC's Plum, I would maybe try that out. Next to that, it is MAC's lipstick in Verve, which, while pretty similar to Velvet Decade, is, I would argue, pinker and lighter. It doesn't have that same sort of depth and brownness that Velvet Decade does. And then next to that, we have the Charlotte Tilbury lipstick in Birkin Brown. I believe it's been renamed to something like So 90s, but I still have the old one that's called Birkin Brown, and you can see that it's a lot redder and browner than Velvet Decade. And then finally, all the way on the very left, we have the MAC lip pencil in Cork, and you can see that that's much more yellow. It has none of that sort of plummy quality that Velvet Decade does. Here we have everything that is vaguely similar to Velvet Dragon, and I'm also just going to swatch Velvet Cinnabar for posterity so you can compare. So all the way on the very left, we have Velvet Cinnabar, and all the way on the very right, we have Velvet Dragon. And you can see that Cinnabar is a much deeper, richer, almost more burgundied out version of Velvet Dragon. Now, the closest color that I could find in my collection to Velvet Dragon is MAC's Chili, which is swatched right next to it, but hopefully you can see on camera that it is slightly deeper and slightly redder, I think, than Velvet Dragon. To me, MAC's Chili almost looks like if you were to take Velvet Dragon and mix just a little bit of Velvet Cinnabar into it. And then next to MAC's Chili, I've just swatched a couple very popular orangey red lipsticks. So that's NARS Heat Wave, and on a lot of people, Heat Wave is considered to be a very orangey red lipstick, and yet compared to everything swatched on my arms, it looks almost like a cool pink tone red because everything else has so much yellow in it. It's also obviously a lot brighter than Velvet Dragon. And then next to that, we have MAC's Lady Danger, which definitely has the right amount of yellow, but it's a much brighter, more vibrant orange color. It doesn't have that same muted quality that Velvet Dragon does. And then finally, what I would consider almost like a true sort of orangey lipstick is the YSL Rouge Pure Couture in number 13. I think the color is called Le Orange or something along those lines. And that too is much more vibrant and almost neon in comparison to Velvet Dragon. Now, when it comes to Velvet Cinnabar, I thought I would have nothing like it in my makeup collection, but I surprisingly found two very, very close colors. You know how even identical twins have very slight differences, like Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen don't look exactly the same? I'd argue that these three colors are triplets. There are some very slight differences if you're paying close attention, but at a first glance, they look pretty much exactly the same, right? Like, those are 3 different lip products, and I think if you were to look at it from this distance, like, I don't know that you'd necessarily be able to tell the difference. On the very right, we have Velvet Cinnabar. Next to it, we have the MAC matte lipstick in Marrakesh, which I think the slight difference between Marrakesh and Velvet Cinnabar is that Marrakesh has a little bit more yellow in it. And then all the way on the very left is a K-Beauty product. It's the 3CA Style Nanda Velvet Lip Tint in the shade Taupe. Of the 3 that I've swatched on my arms, it definitely has the thinnest formula because it's a lip tint and it is the most silicone-y feeling, so I think it would be more prone to slipping and sliding around your lips than Velvet Cinnabar or Marrakesh. But color-wise, I'm fine owning all 3 because I'm unhinged, but if you already have one of the other 2 and you're devastated about maybe having missed out on Velvet Cinnabar, I'd say you're pretty good on the color. Here's everything that I have in comparison to Velvet Blush. So all the way on the very right, we have Velvet Blush itself. Then next to it, we have Charlotte Tilbury's lipstick in Bond Girl, which I believe has been renamed to Am I Kiss. You can see that while it has probably like a similar undertone, it doesn't have that richness or depth that blush does. To the point where I would argue that, I think if you've tried out Bond Girl before and thought it was just a little bit too light for your skin tone, Velvet Blush might be what you were looking for. And then next to that, we actually have Bobbi Brown's Crush Lip Color in Telluride, which you can hopefully see is lighter and a bit warmer, I think, than Velvet Blush. And then next to that, we have MAC's Satin Lipstick in Amorous, which I thought would 100% be a perfect dupe for Velvet Blush. But as you can hopefully see in this video, it is much cooler and more purple tone than Velvet Blush actually is. And then finally, all the way on the very left is the NYX Soft Matte Lip Cream in Rome, which you can hopefully see is lighter and warmer than Velvet Blush. I will just flag here one lipstick which I no longer own because I decluttered it to my mother, but which is almost an exact dupe of Charlotte Tilbury's Bond Girl. So the second one on the right is Maybelline's matte lipstick in Touch of Spice. So if Velvet Blush looks a little too intimidating for you, or if you've always wanted to try out Bond Girl but you're not willing to pay either Charlotte Tilbury or Lisa Eldridge prices, the Maybelline Touch of Spice might be a good option to look into. I've also added in all the way to the very right another swatch of the Luxuriously Lucent lipstick in Painterly, just to point out that I think it actually has a very similar undertone to Velvet Blush. So if matte lipsticks aren't your thing, like if you love the color of Velvet Blush but you think like it's a little too strong, you'd prefer like a balmier, sheerer, more effortless version of it, then Painterly might be the way to go. Here we have Velvet Myth next to every other berry tone lipstick I owned, and I've also decided to re-swatch Velvet Midnight so that you can see the difference between the two. So on the very right, we have Velvet Myth, which is an absolutely beautiful color. I think the closest thing I have to it is probably the NARS Audacious lipstick in Audrey. That's the thing that's swatched right next to it. But hopefully you can see right here that Audrey is ever so slightly warmer than Myth, and it's just a little bit more muted. So it doesn't have the same depth of color and genuine richness that Myth does. Next to NARS Audrey, we have MAC's Rebel Satin Lipstick, which you can see is a lot lighter and a lot more pinky purple than Velvet Myth. Next to that, we have a limited edition MAC Lip Mousse from the Pony Park collection called Off the Record, and you can see that that too is lighter and pinker. Then we have the MAC Matte Lipstick in Diva, which in my personal opinion is a slightly darker and redder version of Myth. Like, to me, Myth looks like if you took MAC's Diva and NARS Audrey and then mixed them together. And then next to that, we have the Anastasia Liquid Lipstick in Heathers, which is much darker and I think burgundier than Myth. And then finally, down below, we have MAC's Midnight, which you can see is just so much more strongly purple than that Anastasia color. And it's much deeper and cooler, I think, than Velvet Myth is. Okay, so here we have every color that is even vaguely close to Velvet Affair and or Velvet Muse. So these are all my sort of like nudie, pink, brown, neutral colors. You can see there's a ton of them on my arm and there's a lot going on, so let me walk you through it. On the very right, we have Velvet Affair. Next to it, we have the MAC Matte Lipstick in Taupe. Next to that, we have the Huda Beauty Liquid Lipstick in Trendsetter. And then below that, we have the Maybelline Super Stay Matte Ink in Amazonian. I think those first three are the closest contenders to a dupe for Velvet Affair. I think the one that comes absolutely the closest is probably Huda Beauty's Liquid Lipstick in Trendsetter. And then I'd argue that MAC Taupe is just slightly darker than Velvet Affair, and same with Maybelline Amazonian. I think it's slightly darker and slightly almost redder. Other sort of vaguely similar products that I've added in for comparison are the Sephora Cream Lip Stain in number 76. I believe the color's called Blaze of Glory. Then below that, we have the NYX Soft Matte Lip Cream in Berlin. Then below that, we have the Shiseido lipstick in Murmur, which I had actually picked out thinking that it would be a dupe for Affair, but now that I look at it, it's actually a lot closer to Velvet Muse than Velvet Affair. So below Shiseido's Murmur, we have Shiseido Woodblock, which you can see is a lot darker and richer than Velvet Affair. And then below that, we have a discontinued lipstick called MAC's Persistence, which again is just ever so slightly deeper than Velvet Affair, but I think has the exact same undertone. And then below that, we have Velvet Muse. So moving into this part of my arm. So third from the left is Velvet Muse, and I think it does have a fair bit in common with the sixth color from the left, which is Shiseido Murmur. Some other colors which I swatched next to Velvet Muse is my lightest nudist lipstick. That's the Guerlain Kiss Kiss Matte Lipstick in Caliente Beige. And then all the way on the very left is a Bite Beauty Stick in Almond, which I think you can see is a lot warmer and darker than Velvet Muse's. It's even warmer and darker than Velvet Affair all the way on the very right. Okay, so just to double check, I've swatched Velvet Muse all the way on the very right. Then next to it, slightly warmer, is Shiseido's Murmur. And then a surprisingly sort of close color is the NYX Soft Matte Lip Cream in the shade Rome. If you're looking for sort of maybe a drugstore alternative to Velvet Muse, it doesn't have that same thick, fully opaque formula, but Rome might be a decent contender. Okay, we have run out of daylight entirely, so I've moved further back, turned on my room lights. This is the absolutely unhinged state of my arm. I've been at this for 5 hours. I have lost all daylight, possibly even my sanity, but hopefully along the way you guys have found some dupes. And if you've made it all the way to the end of this very, very unhinged video, I have a surprise for you, which is that Lisa Eldridge's company accidentally sent me a duplicate of some lip colors and lip products. Specifically, they accidentally send me extras of Velvet Cinnabar, Velvet Midnight, as well as the Velvet Decade lip pencil. So if you're one of my subscribers and you had the thought and luck and patience to watch all the way to the end of this video, and you're interested in either one of these 3 products, Velvet Cinnabar, Velvet Midnight, or Velvet Decade, please let me know down below which one you're interested in, and I will reach out to you. We'll connect via some other form of social media or email or something, and I will get your address and send these out to you, because what am I gonna do with these extras? You know, I would much rather one of you guys who's really been wanting to try any of these 3 colors or formulas get to try them out. I don't really care where you live in the world. I'll figure out a way to ship it to you. So that's everything from me. Thank you so, so much for watching. And as always, I hope you have an amazing week. And I honestly don't remember what the rest of my outro used to be. We're really gonna have to figure this out again. So thanks again for watching. Have an amazing week. Love you guys. Bye.